Here are 6 things I learned from 2 weeks of pro pickleball in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, and Da Nang, Vietnam. First, objects in the rearview mirror are closer than they appear. To the surprise of many, there were a lot of upsets and even more near upsets in the two PPA Asia Tour stops. On the very first day of the Malaysia Cup, Ben Johns and Christian Alshon found themselves down 8-7-1 in the third against Hien Trong and Quan Du. Now, we can probably come up with several ways of justifying this scoreline. It was Ben and Christian's first time playing together. They were playing with a slow Yola ball in even slower conditions. They could have been jet lagged. We didn't have much practice time, etc. These things probably did make the match closer than it would have been back in the States, but at the end of the day, you just don't push Ben and Christian to that scoreline if you suck at pickleball. In the next round, Van Schick Kapadia and Rob Nunnery pushed Ben and Christian as well, and a lot of it was Van Schick's chaotic offense and quick hands. And the biggest upset of Malaysia occurred from Danny Townsend and Nicola Schulman defeating Rose Van Rieck and Anna Bright. The biggest upset of Vietnam was, of course, Armand Bhatia and I defeating Ben Johns and Dekel Bar. There were some upsets, but the main takeaway here is the international players passed the eye test. Even though they were still losing matches to the American-based pros, the points were competitive and the scores weren't blowouts. From a skill perspective, the widest gap between the American players and the international players seemed to be the ability to successfully arrive at the kitchen. Many of the international players have phenomenal drives, as a lot of them come from high-level tennis backgrounds as well, but they aren't always able to either effectively crash behind it or execute their fifth shot drops to get into the kitchen as frequently as the Americans. On the flip side of that equation, American players seem slightly stronger at solidifying their returner advantage and keeping their opponents back at the baseline after their serves. From a strategic perspective, the American players seemed slightly more comfortable in our shot selection and our patterns. In big moments, we know exactly what type of strategy we're going to execute and what type of shot to hit at any given time. The shot selection was slightly poorer for the international players, leading to some questionable decisions at important times. However, that's all stuff that comes with more and more repetitions and seeing the highest level of play. Asia's a melting pot of racket sports. Pickleball isn't a solved game, and as you know by following my channel, it's constantly evolving. New balls, new strategy, new technique, new equipment, etc. But American pickleball has one fatal flaw. It lacks racket sport diversity. In the States, 90% of our pros come from a tennis background. We see the court like a tennis player. We hold the paddle like a tennis racket. We hit our shots like a tennis player. And even those who didn't start with tennis end up becoming a byproduct of the environment they play in. Monkey see, monkey do. But tennis isn't necessarily right. It definitely helps in many ways, and probably more than others, but it can also hurt. Most noticeably, tennis players are taught to be smooth and flowy with our motions, rather than quick, jerky, and wristy like in other sports. The fast twitch style of Gabe Tardio and Hayden Patrickman is going to prevail over the slow, methodical style of Ben Johns, and we're probably not terribly far away from that shifting point. Asia has a much more diverse racket background, but also a very strong admiration for racket sports. You have elements of tennis, table tennis, badminton, and squash melting together, and each of them has their own strengths and weaknesses. Personally, I think that tennis is best for serves, returns, ground strokes, drop shots, and pattern recognition. Table tennis is best for those backhand flicks, ball tracking, quick reactions, and anticipation. Badminton is best by far, without a doubt, for overheads, and I think actually digs from the transition zone as well. From watching these last couple of weeks, I saw 4.5 players hitting overheads better than the pros in the States. Wang Yun has recently been posting about taking badminton lessons, and other pros would be wise to take note as well. Badminton players seem to do a very good job of getting the ball back in the transition zone, throwing that ball up. Finally, squash seems to be strong for just pure power generation. So each of these racket sports has its own pros and cons, but with table tennis, squash, and badminton being more popular in Asia, players are exposed to different shots, different techniques, and different patterns with more frequency. Ben Johns became the #1 player because of his tennis and table tennis background. Future #1s will add elements of badminton and squash as well to their game. 3. Slower conditions are a great equalizer. We played with a Yola ball on pickle roll courts in hot and humid conditions. These conditions were about as slow as you could possibly make them. The Yola ball started out comparable in speed to a Franklin ball or maybe a very worn down Vulcan ball, but it also quickly broke down. They didn't break, but they did turn to mush where you could squish them easily with your fingers. Also, it didn't help that it was 80 plus degrees and 80% humidity, which was just nasty out there. Finally, the pickle roll courts are extremely extremely gritty and low bouncing, leading to some of the slowest conditions I think I've ever played in. And I think that extreme conditions on either end, whether slow or fast, equalizes the playing field a little bit. Slow conditions give players more time to get into position and execute their shots, and even when they're out of position, the squishy ball can sort of hide mishits and pop-ups. I think that the international players would fare slightly worse under the pressure of quicker conditions of a lifetime ball in different temperatures. They'd be able to adjust over time, of course, but I think that the conditions may have made the matches a little bit closer than they would have been in other circumstances. 4. Pickleball is actually cool. In the States, pickleball started with old people. I know this because I started playing pickleball in 2013, and I can confirm that pickleball was a sport for old people. And this was probably true until 2020 or maybe even 2021. But even then, not everybody knew what pickleball was. Pickleball is extremely new to Malaysia and Vietnam, but everybody already knows about it, especially the younger generation. Pickleball is actually cool. Young people are proud to say that they play pickleball. It's how people meet, it's how they socialize, and it's part of pop culture. In Malaysia, there were so many famous influencers that were excited to come and share that they were part of the event. In fact, Uncle Roger, Malaysia's hero, was in the live chat. He actually asked me a question while I was commentating as well. Pickleball is very cool in Asia, and it's starting with the younger generation, not the retirees. Influencers are constantly posting about pickleball, and there are even legitimately popular songs about it. Not just the AC Baby raps. Shout out to Alex Crum. People are interested in the pro game as well, which is how we were able to set the Guinness World Record for pickleball match attendance at 7,906 people last week. Interestingly, there doesn't seem to be the same sort of tennis versus pickleball rivalry in Vietnam and Malaysia. Former tennis pro players are converting over to pickleball, seemingly with support as well. Hong Nam Lee, a Vietnamese former professional tennis player, is a perfect example. He won the Junior Wimbledon title and he's only 28 years old, not some washed up former tennis player like Travis Rettenmeier. Just kidding. Travis is a great friend of mine, but the point is, pickleball is seen as a legitimate transition for current tennis pro players, not just a transition for former tennis players like we have in the States. Donald Young, Jack Sock, Jeannie Bouchard, Sam Querrey, and more, they're all phenomenal additions to the game, but we're seeing players that are in their athletic primes switch over to pickleball from these Asian countries. Asian dominance in pickleball is inevitable. It's been a good run, boys. Asia's going to take over this sport for several reasons. First, they already love racket sports. Tennis, table tennis, badminton, squash, everything. Second, pickleball is far cheaper because it doesn't take up as much space in densely populated urban areas of Asia. Third, pickleball is cool and part of pop culture. Young kids are choosing pickleball, and tennis players in their primes are converting over. In the States, kids are choosing pickleball more frequently than ever before, and that's evidenced by the recent signings of teenagers like Cam Chaffee, Ella Yeh, Elsie Hendershot, Jade Rao, and Tama Shimabukaro. But pickleball is competing with football, baseball, basketball, soccer, hockey, and more in the States. The talent pool is diluted in the States, and if the Asian countries focus their larger populations on fewer sports, they'll attract the best athletes and dominate the game in a manner similar to table tennis or badminton. Fourth, government support is crucial. In the States, private investment seems to be the main driver of pickleball, and there's not really any federal initiatives to grow the game of pickleball to my knowledge, but that's not the case elsewhere. Governments in India, China, and Vietnam are far more involved in the growth of sports and sports facilities, and they're just starting their funding of pickleball. But in the meantime, the handful of Americans claimed 31 of 48 medals in Malaysia and Vietnam, and the vast majority of us didn't even play. So for the time being, America does still dominate the world of pickleball at a level similar to the 1992 Dream Team. It won't always be like this, but for the meantime, we're the undisputed world number one. Pickleball is here to stay. If I learned anything from this trip, it's that pickleball is here to stay. In fact, it is just in its infancy. Courts are still popping up like crazy in the United States, and it's happening even faster internationally. But participation was never the real question. The real question has always been, is pickleball a viable professional sport? Well, I think we got our answer when we set the Guinness Book of World Records pickleball attendance with 7,906 in Da Nang. The craziest part is, we needed a bigger stadium. There were people standing up in the top rows. Domestically, MLP and PPA have published really encouraging ticket sales numbers as well, meaning that more people are playing pickleball and starting to engage with the professional side of the sport. Pickleball will be a high school sport, pickleball will be a collegiate NCAA sport, and pickleball will be a Olympic sport. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when.